A storm drain unchecked for decades. Tonight, Baltimore families who lost everything when a collapsed drain destroyed their homes are finally getting answers. Is City State's Attorney Ivan Bates' illegal gun bill in jeopardy? The new hurdle he's facing. A Baltimore family finally gets justice 13 years after a man is killed during a high-speed chase involving the disgraced Gun Trace Task Force.
He had nothing to do with what they was doing that day.
How much the city will pay out.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 4.
Thank you for joining us. First at 4 o'clock, I'm Kai Jackson.
And I'm Mary Bubala. Updates today to three big stories. As we begin the third month of the year, violence continues on Baltimore streets. Tonight, why a push to increase penalties on gun crimes is now in jeopardy.
The city leaders are split over the future of the city's Conduit system. Tense meeting Monday as the mayor is accused of a power grab.
But first, a sinkhole swallows homes in East Baltimore, and the city refuses to help residents. How relentless coverage from Fox 45 News is getting answers for those families.
To know that these pipes are this many years old and the city is, basically blaming me, basically it's like a slap in the face.
Our reporter standing by with live coverage of these big stories.
Let's begin with Rebecca Pryor and the latest turn of events in East Baltimore as homeowners who lost everything want the city to pay up. Rebecca?
Yeah, Mary and Kai, the homeowners' stories, they are just heartbreaking. And this image right here, it really puts that heartbreak into perspective. Take a look at this massive patch of dirt. It is all that is left after the city had to demolish an entire row of homes following the tragedy. The city has refused to reimburse the homeowners for what they lost, but now those homeowners are fighting back.
We are standing at the intersection of Homewood Avenue and North Avenue. We are also standing at the intersection of incompetence and a dereliction of duty.
Renewing calls for reimbursement. Through Vignaraja, a legal representative for North Avenue homeowners, citing a Fox 45 investigation uncovering the city's lack of maintenance on a 115-year-old stone arch storm drain. The city initially telling Fox 45 this year an earlier internal review of the North Avenue drain did not indicate items of concern. But when pressed for proof of that inspection, the city admitting months later the storm drain's latest inspection occurring 23 years ago, far from last year.
If there weren't repeated efforts by a local news station haranguing and harassing them to tell the truth, their lie might have persisted.
The outdated drain collapsing last July, causing a sinkhole to form and ultimately forcing the demolition of several homes. In a matter of days, everything Quentin Bell and Monique Bess owned, gone. And the city claims they owe residents nothing in return. In a letter sent to homeowners in November, Baltimore City's legal department writing, quote, before a local government is required to pay a citizen for a loss, the claimant must first show the city had notice of the defect which caused the loss. So for months, Fox 45 has been asking the city, how could residents have possibly predicted an underground drain would collapse? Finally, on Tuesday, DPW spokesperson Blair Adams acknowledging they couldn't. Adams writing, quote, there is no way anyone has that kind of insight to predict when such an incident will occur. Adams going on to explain it's the city's responsibility to monitor drainage systems so they can document signs of concern, a responsibility that's also mandated by state law. The Maryland Department of the Environment requiring Baltimore City to inspect storm drains at least once every 3 years in an effort to protect the environment, public health, and safety. But according to the city's response to Fox 45's recent Maryland Public Information Act request, this storm drain went unchecked for more than 2 decades.
If you don't conduct the inspection, you won't be able to see the repairs that are necessary to avert disaster.
Vignaraja arguing not knowing what cracks and crevices could lie beneath Baltimore streets poses a threat to every home, business, and building in the city. So just because this didn't happen to you doesn't mean it won't.
There are ticking time bombs all across this city underneath the ground because they haven't done inspections in decades. Who falls victim next is anyone's guess.
Now, it's important to note the only reason the city admitted they hadn't inspected this drain in over 2 decades was because they were legally obligated to respond to my Public Information Act request. That being said, I've also sent the city countless of other questions regarding this issue that have gone either blatantly ignored or the city has refused to answer them. I have posted a list of those questions online. You can find them in this story on our website at foxbaltimore.com. And trust me, what the city won't answer says a lot. Reporting live in Baltimore City, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Rebecca, thank you. Now, we are seeing some social media reaction to this latest development. Right here, you can see we have Greg saying Baltimore City a failure because of a one-party system. The Democrats are a failure. Nick says they should have never let the city tear down those houses. The city did it because they didn't want to get blamed if the house collapsed and hurt somebody. David is asking if he's still paying a mortgage, why isn't the homeowner's insurance paying out anything? It's a good question. And then Sherry, who says it makes me sick that citizens like this man just trying to make a good life with his family are constantly ignored. The city should pay him so that he can try to get back to normal. We're also hearing from a longtime resident of Baltimore.
They hear more from Fox 45 and from Miss Rebecca Pryor than anybody from the city. And again, the city has mistreated this young man along with other members of the community.
Megan Gillen will have that part of our coverage coming up at 4:30. We'd like you to join the conversation and question of the day. Do you think current leadership has your safety in mind? Yes or no? The poll just went live. You can vote right now at foxbaltimore.com/vote. We'll get results at 4:30.
Well, fireworks at the Board of Estimates meeting this morning as the fate of the BGE Conduit deal remains under dispute. Jeff Abel is live with today's continued back and forth over all of this. Jeff?
Yes, the tug of war over that conduit system grew a lot tighter today as the council president called the mayor's actions nothing more than a power grab. It all played out this morning as the war of words hit the Board of Estimates, where 2 weeks ago the mayor and his 2 appointees on the board approved an agreement giving broad control over the conduit system to BG&E. Well, the comptroller and council president boycotted that meeting in protest 2 weeks ago, and today both of them took aim at the mayor.
That an individual can decide to push through in a matter of a couple weeks hundreds of millions of dollars of implications associated with a contract to a private industry is extremely concerning.
Never, and I repeat, never have I done anything or made any decision that was not in the best interest of those who call this great city home. If there was a better deal to be done, that deal would have been done.
What we're missing here is a judge. I think we've reached the point where it's clear that we just have to agree to disagree.
It is still unclear whether the mayor's vote was indeed a legal vote on the conduit system 2 weeks ago. The comptroller has placed the issue back on the agenda next month. We're live. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
Jeff, thank you. We have breaking news from overnight. A man shot in South Baltimore. After 1 o'clock, officers responded to South Gilmore Street, where police say a 25-year-old had been hit in the lower back. The victim told police he was on West Baltimore Street near South Calhoun when he heard multiple gunshots. He says that's likely when he was hit, but didn't realize it for some 3 hours. Now, that man is now one of 80 people who have been shot and survived in Baltimore the first 2 months of the year. 43 people have been killed.
And although shootings and homicides are down compared to this point last year, the number of young people involved in crime is up. Right now, city leaders are looking to curb teen crime, but not by adding more police or cracking down on illegal guns.
Fox 45's Vincent Hill was inside City Hall today with more on what's being proposed. Vincent?
Yeah, Kai, Councilman Christopher Burnett says it comes down to money, specifically finding business owners more money if they allow juveniles to patronize during juvenile curfew hours. Now, currently, the penalty for this is $500, and it's been on the books since 2014. However, since the Evanston mass shooting last month, Councilman Barnett wants that fine to be increased to up to $1,000. Burnett says, he's gotten the support from several business owners in his district. However, not all business owners are on board and says it's not their job to patrol the streets, and they put themselves in danger when they try to move teens away from their stores.
They are violent upside there. So if something happens in front of my door, if I go upside and try to tell them, guys, you have to calm down, no, they will attack me. They will assault me.
That store owner goes on to say that fines like this could greatly affect his bottom line and likely put him out of business if he gets too many fines.
And Vincent, what else is Councilman Burnett saying about why he wants to get this law amended?
Yeah, Mary, he says it comes down to protecting Baltimore youth, but he could not provide any data or an explanation as to how fining business owners will reduce crime. I'll have more on that at 5 o'clock. For now, we're live in Baltimore. Vincent Hill, Fox 45 News.
Vincent, thank you. The General Assembly is halfway through its session, and City State's Attorney Ivan Bates is pushing for a bill to implement tougher penalties for gun crimes. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost is live right now with new concerns about that plan. Mackenzie.
Okay, so if you remember, this legislation would seek to raise the maximum penalty that a judge could implement for somebody who is older than 21 years old facing a first-time misdemeanor gun offense. Right now, the maximum penalty is 3 years. This bill would seek to raise it to 5. And if you're between 18 and 20, the max is already 5. So essentially, this bill really is leveling the playing field for these people who are coming in facing these charges. Now, we have seen this bill have a hearing once already in the House, but that's really about it. And Ivan Bates says this would send a message to criminals in the city that his office is serious about cracking down on violent crime. This morning, Senate President Bill Ferguson was asked about the legislation on the radio, and he says he does support the plan, but he raises some concerns about the legislation moving forward.
I support the initiative. I think that there are going to be some important conversations in the Judicial Proceedings Committee. I know that Legislative Black Caucus has expressed some concerns. I support it. Let me be clear. I also know that even in supporting it, I don't think that the passage of that one piece of legislation has a demonstrable impact on whether or not we see more or less crime.
Now, I reached out to the Legislative Black Caucus earlier today to try and get some clarity about what their concerns are for this legislation, but I didn't get an answer back. However, I did get a statement from Ivan Bates himself, who says he recognizes that this specific legislation won't be the be-all, end-all when it comes to curbing violence, but he says really it'll help him piece together the puzzle pieces to solve this problem.
Do I think that this will have an effect? It is one of the tools in the toolbox that will have some sort of an effect.
Now, remember, this charge specifically is a misdemeanor, so anyone convicted would only have to serve 25% of the sentence. And the legislation is just seeking to raise the maximum penalty. The judge would still have the ability to have discretion when it comes to implementing the sentences that they believe fit the various situation. In terms of the next hearing, it's unclear when or if this legislation will get another hearing in the House or when it will be heard at all in the Senate. We're live in the newsroom. Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Thank you, Mackenzie. If you'd like to talk with your local lawmakers, scan the QR code on your screen. That will take you to our website, which lists their official email and phone numbers.
Consequences from the gun trace task force continue to add up for the city years after the former officers were convicted.
After more than 75 witnesses and a trip to the scene of the crime, the murder trial of Alec Murdaugh nears a conclusion.
And relief for those whose lives depend on insulin, the drug maker's decision that is making headlines today.
And the afternoon commute shaping up A-OK. We do have a few clouds with temperatures in the 50s, so maybe just crack the window open a little. I'm going to let you know when we could be touching near 70 and if it's going to come with rain. That's all tracked in my Weather Authority forecast.
Fox 45 News, winner of 17 2022 Regional Emmy Awards, more than all other Baltimore news stations combined.
We are back now with the Fox 45 Quad Box. Baltimore will pay $6 million in a GTTF settlement. In 2023, officers with the disgraced police group were chasing a drug trafficking suspect in West Baltimore when the suspect crashed into a car. 86-year-old Albert Davis was killed. His family today saying this is justice.
In Waldorf, Charles County, authorities say a 9-year-old is found with a knife at his school. The Charles County Sheriff's Office says the elementary school student threatened another student with the weapon.
The ATF has joined the investigation into the fire that killed 2 people in Dundalk yesterday. We have also learned one of the victims is 66-year-old Beth Susan Gibson. A third person was able to make it out.
President Biden is in Baltimore meeting with Democrats ahead of the 2024 elections. They're expected to decide on a strategy to help them hold on to the White House and win back the House of Representatives. Developments today in the murder trial of Alec Murdaugh, the prominent South Carolina lawyer charged with murdering his wife and son.
That's right. Jurors today traveled to the crime scene, spent about an hour on the property. It was one of the last stages of the trial before they begin to try to reach a verdict. Prosecutors say Mr. Murdaugh carried out the crime in a failed effort to conceal his long-time embezzlement of millions of dollars.
And after an exhaustive investigation, there is only one person who had the motive, who had the means, who had the opportunity to commit these crimes, and also whose guilty conduct after these crimes betrays him.
More than 75 witnesses took the stand over about 5 weeks. Murdaugh has pleaded not guilty to 2 counts of murder. Now, you can listen to daily episodes of our sister station's award-winning podcast, The Murdaugh Murders, Money and Mystery, highlighting the important points from each day in court. Scan that QR code right there on your screen. Search Murdaugh anywhere you get your podcasts. In your Health Watch, exercising for just 11 minutes a day could lower your chance of premature death. That's according to a new study published in the British Journal of Sports Medicine. The study finds participants who exercised 22 minutes a day had a 31% lower risk of dying early than inactive participants. 22 minutes a day is equal to the minimum recommended amount of exercise per week. But people who got half of that, just 11 minutes a day, still saw their risk of early death decrease by 23%. All right, we're looking ahead to this weekend as Chris Rock performs live from Baltimore.
That's right. As we reported, Chris Rock will perform a stand-up special Saturday night from the Hippodrome Theater that will be streamed live on Netflix. This is a first of its kind for Netflix. They've never done this before. Tickets have already sold out.
And as the excitement builds, our morning team is extending a very special invitation to the comedian.
Boom, 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 yeah.
Please. Please. I just want one rib. Please.
Chris Rock, we need your help this Friday on Fox 45 Morning News.
Hopefully Chris Rock will be in town in
would
time.
be
That would be
cool.
so cool if he would stop
be cool.
by. So if Chris Rock or anyone who knows him, if you're watching, come on, do it. Join our morning team on Friday. That
I've
would
seen
be
him in
so
stand-up.
neat.
He is genius.
Oh, my God,
he's so
He's
funny.
a funny
Yeah.
guy.
So funny.
That last shot there reminds me of like a band trip back in high school.
Right, right.
If I'm Chris Rock, I'm coming in. So let's go ahead and see what's going on outside. Of course, he's always welcome, and Mother Nature's always welcome to bring the sun. And you can see here it has tried to come out. It's mostly cloudy skies right now, 55 degrees. Unfortunately, there is going to be some rain on the way tonight into tomorrow, but it's going to come with a plus, a big plus temperature-wise. Winds out of the south-southeast at 9 miles an hour currently. Our humidity at 55%, no wind chill since temperatures are too warm for that. HG radar, there's another batch of snow that's off to our north. This kind of almost looks like yesterday here in New York and New England. Then there are flood watches, big round of rain going to be shooting its way through the central Mississippi Valley and heading our way on the eastern side of, look at all this wintry weather that's out to the west. We got winter storm warnings, winter storm watches, and winter weather advisories. They can keep it, right? Well, it looks like we could have some cold rain around here, not snow, cold rain around here as we head toward Friday after a much warmer day tomorrow. So there's that mixture moving north and east. That's with a warm front that's pushing its way toward us. And behind that warm front, I'll show you in a minute here, temperatures just zoom back up into the 60s here, 70. And also behind that warm front, there's a following cold front. So the potential of rain will eventually increase for us. The warm front comes through tonight. It's going to bring in the warmer air. And also, you can see the warmer air already pushing toward Frederick at 61. Farther away you get from the front, the cooler it gets. Temperatures at 47. At Elkton, we're in the middle at 55 here in Baltimore. But you really see the difference as you head out towards ski country on the state map. 70 degrees in Cumberland, 64 at Oakland. That's kind of unusual to have them so much warmer than we are here in Baltimore. But again, they're behind that warm front, and we're going to get into that type of air for tomorrow. But we do have to track some rain, too. Future scan says overnight tonight, clouds increase by about 2:45, 3 in the morning. There's some of that rain moving in toward Frederick and Westminster, overtakes everybody on and off through 4:30 a.m. through 7:45 in the morning. Still some spot drizzle and light rain. That moves east, so the morning commute could be dicey. And then temperatures in the 60s to near 70 tomorrow afternoon, nice and warm. And then look what happens here. Turns a lot colder as our cold front swings through into early Friday, and then a cold rain moves in through Friday, midday and early afternoon. That's not so nice. Temperature is only going to be in the 40s with that rain there. So big, again, just like we've seen, temperature fluctuation, roller coaster ride. 68 tomorrow, nice day. 44 for a high with rain on Friday. Early shower or two left over Saturday, 57. We're back above average on into next week.
The House Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party making its debut. I'm Atral Nashar on Capitol Hill with how lawmakers say they'll address what they're calling America's existential struggle.
Baltimore Collegiate School for Boys gets to keep its charter, but it comes with a long list of requirements. We examine why this high-performing charter school is under such scrutiny. And a push to get more Marylanders health insurance coverage, the bill that will make sure young Marylanders are insured. The House Foreign Affairs Committee has just advanced a bill that would empower the president to ban TikTok in the United States and crack down on other Chinese economic activity. This comes as a brand new committee in Congress launches an effort to fundamentally change America's approach to the Chinese Communist Party from economics to social media. National correspondent Audra Elnishar has more from Capitol Hill.
Good evening, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The first hearing of the House Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party outlining the stakes of its commission in no uncertain terms.
This is an existential struggle over what life will look like in the 21st century.
Chairman Mike Gallagher, a Republican of Wisconsin, and Ranking Member Raja Krishnamurthy, a Democrat of Illinois, illustrating what's quickly become one of the rare bipartisan efforts in a divided Congress. Outcompete China economically and deter CCP aggression. Separately, the House Financial Services Committee just approved 7 bills aimed at supporting Taiwan, stopping the flow of Chinese fentanyl and currency manipulation. But lawmakers seem to be aware of the risk China may retaliate.
We do not want a war with the PRC. Not a Cold War, not a hot war. We don't want a clash of civilizations.
But a cultural struggle already underway, former Deputy National Security Advisor Matthew Pottinger says, can be traced to TikTok.
It gives the Chinese Communist Party the ability to manipulate our social discourse, the news.
Laying out China's alleged strategy of sowing division between Americans to aid the CCP's goal of expanding its influence and becoming the dominant global economic superpower. The hearing interrupted by protesters.
And perhaps most important, can help the United States.
Former National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster says those moments are indicative of China's efforts to neutralize opposition.
The CCP is counting on us to be divided. We must rise to the occasion and prove them wrong.
A challenge that can't be solved with policy and may be among the toughest facing this new committee. On Capitol Hill, I'm Audra Elnishar reporting.
A high-performing charter school in Baltimore will stay open after its fate went up for a vote. More on the fight to save Baltimore Collegiate School for boys. And we take you inside an operation to disrupt Baltimore's cycle of violence, how the group Roca is working with teens and young men to change lives, and the life-saving drug that's becoming more affordable.
that passes unanimously. Thank you.
I feel relief on behalf of our families and the boys that we serve. And hopefully this provides a lot of hope for the citizens of Baltimore.
After weeks of uncertainty, the Baltimore Collegiate School for Boys will remain open.
And because of what Collegiate and others have called technicalities, city schools threatened to revoke its charter. But after a split vote last week, the school board last night unanimously decided to renew the school's charter for 3 more years.
Joining us in studio is Eurypsie Morgan. She's the spokesperson for the grassroots organization Peace. Eurypsie, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
What's your reaction to the board's decision to allow Baltimore Collegiate to remain open?
Relief. I think like you just heard there on the news, it was absolute relief. I had the opportunity to go to the meeting where they had their presentation to the school board. It was supposed to have been in person, and then it became virtual. And the parents and the students who were there, I mean, you walk in, you're greeted by these kids, they're all shaking your hand, they're looking you in the eye. It's the ideal situation, but the concern that all of these children and the parents had that their school would be closed down was just enormous.
Now, the charter renewal did come with a list of requirements. It's lengthy. Bear with us as we read what's on it. It includes hiring more certified educators, getting a city-approved financial expert, improving special education services, ensuring required classes like social studies, science, and foreign languages are being taught, making sure collective bargaining agreements are followed so that staff members are appropriately qualified for the positions they hold.
The school must also show that data processes have improved and that instructors are able to use data to improve the learning experience. Also, making sure grants are managed and spent appropriately, providing on-site equal employment opportunity training to ensure positive work environment for staff. Looking at that list, you also think failing public schools should have to meet those same standards?
Oh, absolutely. When I hear those standards, the first thing that I think of is hypocrisy. I don't think there's anybody who doubts that the schools should be in compliance to make sure that they're actually educating our children. The question is, why would you require this of a charter school and not the rest of the school system? It seems completely hypocritical.
So you would say it's a double standard?
Oh, absolutely. And look, as I said, there's no problem with us holding our schools accountable. That's what we have been fighting for. You know, we held our first town hall last month, actually, and that was one of the biggest things that people brought up was that they wanted their schools to educate their children. They want accountability. And what we're seeing now is the list of requirements for this charter school should also be the same type of requirements that we get from the public school system, and we're not.
Ms. Morgan, let's read between the lines here. You're an attorney, not just the head of this organization or working with this organization. What else do you think is going on here? This is a school that obviously many people feel is needed to help, particularly in the lives of young black men in the city of Baltimore, many who are struggling, too many who are dying on the streets. Why do you think it was in such jeopardy?
Because two of the requirements that you're seeing on that long laundry list there had to do with unions. It had to do with teachers' unions. The city-approved financial advisor, I'd love to know exactly what that means, considering so many of our schools are in financial shambles. And then, of course, the teachers' union-approved personnel. It has to do with collective bargaining, and that means teachers union. So what you're seeing is a situation in which a school like the Collegiate School in Baltimore is threatening the status quo. It's threatening the school system. And that, of course, as we know, is a political problem, even though it's something that's needed and wanted by these students and these parents.
All right. Eurypsie Morgan, thank you so much for coming on today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Our Project Baltimore team is reporting new data from the state, which shows graduation rates in Baltimore City Public Schools fell for the 5th straight year. The school system's graduation rate is now 68.7%. The graduation rate for the whole state is also down to 86.3%. Now, for months, Project Baltimore has been trying to get answers from the people in charge of Maryland public schools about a number of topics, including enrollment, funding, and ghost students.
But after a dozen emails and several calls that went unanswered, we decided to try something different and went to the state leadership during Tuesday's state school board meeting.
This body oversees billions of tax dollars. You are commissioned to educate nearly 1 million students, and the media can't get a response to simple questions about how some of that money is spent and how some of those students are educated.
Well, tonight at 10 o'clock, more from this board meeting and hearing, and whether or not Project Baltimore has finally heard from the State Department of Education. That brings us to our question of the day. Should those responsible for failures inside city schools be fired? Go to foxbaltimore.com/vote. 94% of those who voted say yes, 6% say no. Make sure to tap the Pulse tab to weigh in.
A storm drain collapses in East Baltimore, swallowing homes along with it. And as residents continue to fight the city for help, an investigation by FOX45 News has found the city might have lied about when that storm drain was inspected. Megan Gillen reports.
A Fox 45 investigation reveals Baltimore City might not have been entirely honest when it comes to last summer's sinkhole along North Avenue. Initially, the city claimed a 2022 inspection found no signs of concern. It was only after filing a Maryland Public Information Act request that the city admitted the latest inspection was done 23 years ago and not last year. Lifelong Baltimore City resident Pastor P.M. Smith weighing in on the message this sends to city residents.
This is not about a sinkhole. It's about the mistreatment of a young man, family man, working man, pursuing the American dream, a homeowner. And the way this administration has mistreated this young man. I met with him. I talked with him. He is still paying mortgage on a building that no longer exists.
Has he heard anything from the city since we've gotten this latest update that it's been 23 years?
They hear more from Fox 45 and from Miss Rebecca Pride than anybody from the city. And again, the city has mistreated this young man along with other members of the community.
If that is in fact true, why? What's in it for the city not to be, doing those checks and balances?
When we talk about the city, we're talking about people, and we're talking about a dysfunctional administration. They are incompetent, they are arrogant, and they're dishonest. They've mistreated this man. Just do the right thing by this young man.
Well, Pastor Smith says he believes part of the problem is city residents voting for the same people, thinking they'll get a different result. I'm Megan Gillen, Fox 45 News.
Well, let's check back on our question of the day. 30 minutes ago, we asked, do you think current city leadership has your safety in mind? So far, 100% say no. You can also weigh in by going to foxbaltimore.com/vote. This poll is under the Live tab.
Also in a city in crisis, disrupting the cycle of violence is the goal of many efforts and organizations in Baltimore. One group trying to do that is trying to change the way young people think and react.
Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost shows us how Roca is working to help young men write a new chapter in their lives.
Good morning, everybody.
Inside the Roca Baltimore headquarters,
did y'all get anything from the CBT training Thursday and Friday?
You'll find Jamal West and the other youth workers.
Everybody took notes, right? Mental or written notes, right?
Checking in with themselves and each other.
Rundown season.
Preparing for the day ahead, heading out to check in on their guys who are at the highest risk of finding themselves at either end of a gun.
So not saying that we're responsible for the drop in shootings, but we definitely play a part in that, and that comes from the work that y'all get up and do every day.
Roca is a 4-year program working with 16 to 24-year-old guys utilizing cognitive behavioral therapy created to help participants take a pause before reacting.
Instead of pulling out a gun or instead of getting into a conflict, they flex that thought.
Kurt Palermo is the executive director of Roca Baltimore. He says the program is challenging.
The first 2 years are very intensive.
But success is happening.
All day.
All built around relationships these youth workers have with their guys.
If you need me, call me. Me and Cal together. Have a good day, y'all.
So where are we going now?
I'm gonna go see one of my guys.
The program allows participants to get a job, but sticking with it isn't always easy.
They will cuss you out, slam the door, threaten you. They'll let you down because they told you they want a job. You done took all the steps to get them, and then they don't go to the interview.
Of course, you got a few that can't handle it at times, but they get better over time.
Roca is not a quick fix. It builds in setbacks, but these youth workers keep coming back.
I'm out front, bro.
What's up, y'all? You was down there with Boosie Boo.
John gets a lesson on letting things go.
That's fine. That's out of your control that they feel like that.
And the importance of showing up.
No call-outs, no lates, no nothing.
For work and for themselves. John says he got involved in Roca because he just couldn't ignore them anymore.
When they came, I'm thinking they coming here for me. Like, to take me back to where I came from. They looked down at my leg for real and said, you can be on a program. Like, you know, Calvin popped up.
All right, be safe, boss. I'll see you tomorrow.
All right.
I don't expect no phone call in the morning come out, oh, Kyle, I can't make it.
Some of the Roca participants come from police referrals, and others come from the program doing non-fatal shooting responses.
We're going to go past so you can see what our work crews look like.
Within 48 hours, these guys are in the community, knocking on doors, offering guys a plan.
We're right here by the football field now.
A job, a way out. One of the jobs is cleaning up Patterson Park, getting paid and learning how to be on a job site.
My first day, so.
These guys say Roca's relentless approach to helping them, showing up every time and not giving up even if they fail, has made them realize Roca isn't like other programs.
Good opportunities, good things come from that.
But the training doesn't stop in the park. Roca helps the guys learn skills that can turn into a job. Like inside this trade school,
Stuff you complicated.
where you find Kareem.
It was like kind of weird. Just think about it. Somebody just knocking on your door. Like, hey, come in. We're trying to help you. Like, is that Jehovah's Witnesses or something? You don't know who that is knocking at your door.
He was in jail on gun-related charges.
They keep coming here for a reason. Like, why can't I just go?
2 years into Roca and a few months into training to be an HVAC technician, Kareem says he's had a mindset shift.
Life just been better.
Heading back to HQ, Jamal says he's committed to helping these young men heal.
Without the relentlessness, we won't have the guys in here. If we would have gave up on them like everybody else in their lives, we wouldn't be able to make the impact we have so far. So if they're relentless in violence, we had to be relentless in solutions.
Healing the trauma is working. Roca had its first graduation ceremony in the fall. 9 guys putting in the work to change their futures.
It's not that they owe Roca anything. They owe themselves this, and they owe their families this. But Roca was the opportunity for them to do whatever it is that they want to do in a safe way.
It's not a 9 to 5. You're going out sometimes in some pretty rough, dangerous areas.
All the time.
Why do you do it?
Change is needed. If I want my kids to grow up in safe environments, what part of my plan is to ensure that that happens? And Roca affords me that opportunity.
Roca relentlessly making connections with young men, teaching them ways to change their lives. In Baltimore, Mackenzie Frost.
Anybody got any questions?
Fox 45 News.
Mackenzie will have part 2 of this story tonight at 10 o'clock. She's investigating transparency within Roca and other organizations fighting crime in Baltimore. It's almost the most beautiful time of year in Washington, D.C. The all-important cherry blossom forecast coming up after this. How long is too long when it comes to scrolling through TikTok? The new limit being imposed, and by who?
And the next weather maker is moving our way. You see out toward Nashville, St. Louis, some flood watches and warnings already going into effect. Tornado watches. I'm going to let you know what this system is going to bring for us. My Weather Authority forecast.
In tonight's Health Watch, drug maker Eli Lilly is capping the out-of-pocket costs of its insulin to $35 per month, effective immediately. Now, the change aligns with the Inflation Reduction Act, which imposed a cap on insulin for seniors enrolled in Medicare. The cap automatically applies to people with private insurance. However, people without insurance can become eligible if they sign up for Eli Lilly's copay assistance program. Over 8 million Americans with diabetes rely on insulin. A push in Annapolis to get more young Marylanders health insurance coverage. Today, the Senate held a hearing on Senate Bill 601. It seeks to make a pilot program that provides subsidies to reduce the cost of health insurance permanent. The program launched in 2021 and has reported an 11% increase in health insurance coverage among young adults. That's 46,000 people.
Once they hit the age of 34, then is it expected, or are we going to continue? I think a lot of people, a lot of taxpayers are hesitant saying, okay, we start funding this, making it permanent, then we're just going to continue doing it, and then we're just going to keep paying and paying and paying from now on. What happens at the age of 34?
Well, at the age of 34, you can no longer get these subsidies, but you still get some subsidies under the Affordable Care Act, and people get better jobs by the time they get 34 usually. And the fact of the matter is we know that young people have a tough time making ends meet, getting everything they need, coming right out of college or high school. This has helped dramatically to make kids healthier and all of us better off.
Well, under the bill, the state will allocate $20 million each year to continue the subsidies. Well, the famous cherry blossoms in Washington, D.C. are appearing earlier this year than usual, obviously, after a unusually warm winter. You're looking at live pictures right now. Moments ago, the National Park Service said the cherry trees are at stage 2 of 6. The 3,700 cherry blossom trees are slated to reach peak bloom from March 22nd through the 25th. And peak bloom means that 70% of those cherry blossoms are open. According to the National Park Service, typically it happens between the last week of March and the first week of April. Jonathan, this is early.
Wow. Yeah, look, people out there enjoying the outside right there along the tidal basin. Right now, we've just, don't go to D.C. yet. We just have some of those green buds kind of appearing and kind of forming as we speak. But in a few weeks, it's going to be a totally different story. So get ready. The weather's going to be helping out here, 55 degrees, and we've actually got an even warmer day on the way for tomorrow. Winds out of the south-southeast at 9 miles an hour on the Mile 1 Towson Cam. Humidity at 55%. Do have some high clouds, at least, as one weather maker moves its way off to our north, or at least the rain and snow with it does. And then kind of part 2 is down to the south with some flood watches, as well as even a tornado watch that's in effect for portions of the Mid-South. And then we've got all kinds of wintry weather and wintry warnings across the western United States. So, again, there's this warm front, this red line that's pulling through. That's our latest weather maker. It's going to make it a lot warmer for tomorrow. Maybe kind of let in by a little bit of rain, though, as we head through late night tonight into early tomorrow morning. You can actually see some of it congealing and coming together this afternoon to our west, and this evening it's right on the doorstep for us. So I think overnight tonight is when things get wetter. And on the other side of that warm front, boy, it is warmer. 61 right now at Frederick with 50s here in Baltimore. And then look even farther west towards ski country, Cumberland, we're at 70 current hour. So there's where the warm air is, and it's moving east. Overnight tonight, the clouds, there's some of that rain after about 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning through about 4 or 5. By about 7:45, 8 o'clock, it's gone, and then we clear out a little bit. I think we're well into the 60s to near 70 tomorrow afternoon. And then colder air moves in and more energy moves in from the south and west. So the next weather maker is going to be a cold rain for us, it appears, even some snow up in the high country out west as you head into the Appalachian Mountains as well as the Blue Ridge. But around here, again, it's just a cold rain. But we drop from 68 tomorrow to 44 on Friday, back up to 57 on Saturday, some morning showers. Then we're in the 50s as we head into next week. So, boy, the temperature roller coaster ride continues.
Jonathan, thank you. Coming up on Fox 45 News at 5 o'clock, Chicago's mayor is out after an election heavily focused on crime in that city. We look into Baltimore and whether voters here could be impacted by what happened in Chicago. And the Maryland Transit Administration says its workforce hasn't recovered from the pandemic, the number of jobs they have opened, and how they hope to attract new applicants. In consumer news, the federal pandemic program giving extra money to Americans on food stamps ends today. 31 million of individuals be affected. Congress decided to end the COVID-era program to prevent a government shutdown. Some households will see cuts to their monthly benefits by an average of $182. Maryland MTA is looking for staff, saying they haven't really recovered from the pandemic. MTA Administrator Holly Arnold says the agency is looking for mechanics and security and other positions. She says MTA is trying to sweeten the deal for any new employees.
We're attacking this on multiple fronts. So we recently signed a new collective bargaining agreement with our union for increased wages and increased benefits. So it pays more now if you want to come over. We're recruiting throughout the agency, so you can see on our social media and on the front of the buses, you can see we're hiring and the phone number if you want to apply. We've revamped our website. And we're also increasing our communication with our riders if the service is going to be cut, and you can see that on the transit app.
Anyone who wants to drive can sign up through MTA and receive their commercial driver's license after a 12-week training program. In the coming weeks, TikTok is setting a default 60-minute time limit for users under the age of 18. If minors reach the 1-hour time limit, they'll have to enter a passcode and make an active decision to keep watching if the user is under 13 years of age. Parents will have to set a passcode for an extra half hour of viewing. Coming up on Fox 45 News at 5 o'clock, new concerns over Ivan Bates' gun bill. What recent comments from leaders in Annapolis say about the chances of it passing. Big fines could be coming to local businesses if they serve kids at the wrong times. A new proposal in City Hall to hold them accountable for youth violence. The state Senate president voices concerns about Ivan Bates' plan to crack down harder on gun offenders. The latest on the bill's progress in Annapolis.
The lawyer for Baltimore residents who lost so much voicing frustration today. The demands after Fox 45 News reveals the city wasn't entirely honest about safety inspections before their homes were destroyed.
A charter school gets to stay open, but with a long list of conditions. Fox 45 News is talking with the former city council member, asking if city schools are held to the same standards.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 5.
We are following two big stories on the crime fight in Maryland. In the city, lawmakers pushing for stricter enforcement of a city curfew, saying businesses that serve teens could be punished.
That comes as City State's Attorney Ivan Bates continues to push for his bill implementing tougher penalties for gun crimes. Good evening, I'm Kai Jackson.
And I'm Mary Bubala. We have team coverage on the crime crisis tonight, starting with the latest on Bates' bill. With session 2023 more than halfway through, Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost joins us live with the latest concerns. Mackenzie?
Well, Mary, we know that this legislation seeks to raise the maximum penalty from 3 years to 5 for certain gun offenders who are facing this charge who are 21 and older. Right now, the max penalty for 18 to 20-year-olds is already 5 years. So really, this legislation is seeking to level the playing field. We know that this bill had a hearing already in a House committee, but so far it has really failed to move one step farther. Now we're seeing Senate President Bill Ferguson say he does support the legislation, but is also raising some concerns about the plan moving forward. The support for Baltimore's town prosecutor Ivan Bates' push to crack down on sentences for gun offenders includes elected leaders at several levels. Current and former Democratic leaders in Annapolis.
We have some congressional support. It looks pretty positive.
This legislation to me speaks volumes. It just shows that we in Baltimore City are trying to move in the right direction.
Republicans in the State House.
Mr. Bates has decided, the state's attorney in Baltimore City, to do something, and I want him to know that I am on his side. I'm willing to do anything I can to help his efforts. As a legislator, I feel like this problem is out of control.
And even Congressman Kwesi Mfume sending this letter to the chair of the House Judiciary Committee in support of the bill. Despite the list of sponsors on both sides of the aisle in both chambers, the future of the legislation is not clear.
I support it. Let me be clear. I also know that even in supporting it, I don't think that the passage of that one piece of legislation has a demonstrable impact on whether or not we see more or less crime.
Senate President Bill Ferguson, a Baltimore City Democrat, on WBAL's C4 and Brian Neiman show Wednesday morning, offering cautious optimism.
I support the initiative. I think that there are going to be some important conversations in the Judicial Proceedings Committee. I know that Legislative Black Caucus has expressed some concerns.
It's unclear what those concerns are. The Legislative Black Caucus not responding to Fox 45's email asking for clarity. The Senate President says Bates' bill won't be the fix to the city's crime crisis.
I just don't see a lot of the causation there.
In a statement to Fox 45 News, Bates agrees his proposal is not a cure-all for the deep issues surrounding violent crime. But Bates says it's common sense legislation that should be supported by the people who want to prioritize public safety in Baltimore. Bates has long said this plan is a piece of the puzzle.
Do I think that this will have an effect? It is one of the tools in the toolbox that will have some sort of an effect.
The state's attorney in Baltimore says he's already seen the impacts of the legislation.
It's that new state's attorney, man. Yeah, that's all they keep talking about down there.
Inmates in Baltimore City talking about Bates' plan to crack down on illegal guns, despite the bill not voted on yet by lawmakers in Annapolis. And now it's unclear when or if a vote will even happen. Now remember that this charge is a misdemeanor, so anyone who is found guilty would only be required to serve 25% of the sentence. And judges still have discretion when it comes to how much time they want to give the defendant when they do hand down that sentence. As for what's next, the bill is not on any schedules in the next couple of days in Annapolis. We're live in the newsroom. Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Thank you, Mackenzie. If you'd like to talk with your local lawmakers, scan the QR code you see here on the screen. That will take you to our website, which lists their official email and phone numbers. Early this morning, a man was shot in South Baltimore. Just after 1 o'clock, Baltimore police responded to South Gilmore Street, where a 25-year-old had been hit in the lower back. The victim told police he was on West Baltimore Street near South Calhoun when he heard gunshots. He says it's likely that's when he was hit, but he didn't realize it for some 3 hours.
That man is now one of 80 people who have survived being shot in Baltimore in the first 2 months of the year. 43 people have been killed, although shootings and homicides are down compared to this point last year. The number of young people involved in crime is up. Now, city leaders are looking to curb teen crime by holding businesses accountable for youth curfews. But some business owners are saying public safety is not their responsibility. Vincent Hill is live with more on this for us tonight. Vincent?
Yeah, Mary, holding business owners accountable literally to the tunes of thousands of dollars.
It's a law that's been on Baltimore City books since 2014, fining businesses up to $500 for allowing teens to patronize during school hours. But after the mass shooting at the Edmonton Shopping Center and this heated exchange,
I don't be in my community. I don't be in my community. I don't.
Councilman Christopher Burnett is looking to increase that fine up to $1,000, and it has business owners fuming.
I think it doesn't make sense.
Phyllis Camden owns a beauty supply store at Pennsylvania Avenue and North Avenue.
I would just tell them to find another way to get money, but not inside of our pocket. We are working too hard to just give money for them to do their jobs.
Camden says his job is retail, not patrolling the streets of Baltimore.
The city have to take care of it. The police have to take care of it.
He says he's concerned for his safety because of the large crowds that congregate in front of his store.
They are violent outside there. So if something happens in front of my door, if I go outside and try to tell them, guys, you have to calm down, no, they will attack me.
Fox 45 questioning Councilman Burnett about Camden's concerns.
I would push back with the notion that businesses bear no responsibility. I mean, we have businesses are responsible. If a student comes in and someone under the age of 21 wants to buy alcohol, it's the business's job to say, hey, I can't serve you.
We asked Councilman Burnett about data showing a reduction in crime since the law went into effect almost 10 years ago. Is there any data to suggest that, yes, these citations have led to a reduction in crime in certain areas?
So the original bill did require reports to be submitted to the city council. What we learned today and what I already knew was that the reports weren't happening.
Despite that, Burnett's still saying business owners should be held responsible for something there is no data to show is effective.
We don't ask the police to do that. We ask businesses to comply with the law.
Something Camden says is unacceptable.
So I won't put my life in danger just because I have to play the role of the police or of the city.
Meanwhile, that amendment was not voted on today. There were several questions about where that $1,000 fine should be imposed, whether it should be in a school zone or a non-school zone. Meanwhile, we did reach out to BPD to see how many citations have been issued in the last year. We have yet to hear back. For now, we're live in Baltimore. Vincent Hill, Fox 45 News.
Vincent, thank you. Well, new tonight, a multi-million-dollar settlement given to the family of a man killed in an accident related to Baltimore's gun trace task force. In 2010, then Sergeant Wayne Jenkins and another officer were chasing two suspects in their car when they ran a stop sign, hitting another vehicle. Albert Davis Sr. and his wife were in the car that was hit. Davis died from the injuries he suffered in that crash. Well, now the city of Baltimore is giving his estate $6 million as part of the settlement. According to the BOE, to date, Baltimore has paid out $22 million in 39 settlements related to the Gun Trace Task Force.
To know that these pipes are this many years old and the city is, basically blaming me, basically it's like a slap in the face.
A Fox 45 investigation uncovering cracks in the city's handling of last summer's sinkhole on North Avenue. Now, initially, the city claimed it had inspected the storm drain that led to the sinkhole. However, our persistent questioning and reporting revealed that wasn't the case. Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor reports homeowners who lost their properties want the city to pay up. Rebecca?
Yeah, Kai, these homeowners' stories that we've been telling you for months now, they are just heartbreaking. And this image right here, this really captures that heartbreak perfectly. This is a massive patch of dirt. All that is left after the city demolished an entire row of homes last summer. Following the tragedy, the city has refused to reimburse the homeowners for what they lost, but now those homeowners are fighting back. As you'll remember, right where we're standing is where a 115-year-old stone arch storm drain collapsed last July. It caused the sinkhole to form and ultimately forced the demolition of these homes. The city claimed that the drain collapse was not their fault, in part because they had completed an internal review earlier last year and found no items of concern. However, our investigation revealed that last inspection done on the outdated drain actually occurred in the year 2000, more than 2 decades ago, and a far cry from last year. And now that revelation is renewing homeowners' calls for reimbursement.
They're not asking at this stage above and beyond their cost. They're asking for just compensation for the homes that they have lost because of the city's failure.
In response to the controversy, the city has now kickstarted a new push to inspect their entire storm drain system. But for North Avenue residents, they're calling that inspection a day late and $1 short. I've also asked the city if they have any response to these renewed requests for reimbursement. As of News 7 tonight, though, I have not heard back. Reporting live in Baltimore City, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Fireworks at the Board of Estimates meeting this morning as the fate of the BGE Conduit deal remains under dispute. Jeff Abel is live with today's continued back and forth. Jeff?
The fate over that conduit system, the tug of war drew a lot tighter today as the council president called the mayor's actions nothing more than a power grab. The war of words played out this morning at the Board of Estimates, where 2 weeks ago the mayor and his two appointees on the board approved an agreement giving BG&E broad control over the conduit system. Well, the comptroller and the council president both boycotted that meeting in protest, and today both of them took aim at the mayor.
That an individual can decide to push through in a matter of a couple weeks hundreds of millions of dollars of implications associated with a contract to a private industry is extremely concerning.
Never, and I repeat, never have I done anything or made any decision that was not in the best interest of those who call this great city home. If there was a better deal to be done, that deal would have been done.
What we're missing here is a judge. I think we've reached the point where it's clear that we just have to agree to disagree.
There is still debate whether the mayor's vote last week was actually a legal vote. The issue is now set to be back on the Board of Estimates agenda next month. We are live. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
A Democratic mayor out after one term in Chicago, looking into the crime concerns that hurt her chances of keeping her in office and whether something similar could happen in Baltimore.
A school gets to keep its charter, but with a laundry list of conditions. We talk with the former city council member and charter school operator about why failing city public schools aren't facing the same scrutiny.
And a good-looking day again with highs in the 50s. A roller coaster temperature trend, though. It's on its way again, up to the mid to upper 60s tomorrow. Looks a lot colder Friday, and then we're back in the 50s again Saturday, Sunday, Monday. I'll let you know rain and snow chances. It's all in my Weather Authority forecast.
that passes unanimously. Thank you.
Feel relief on behalf of our families and the boys that we serve. And hopefully this provides a lot of hope for the citizens of Baltimore.
Well, after weeks of uncertainty, the Baltimore Collegiate School for Boys will stay open. City schools threatened to revoke the charter for a number of issues. After a split vote the first time around, last night the board unanimously decided to renew the school's charter for 3 years. Joining us in the studio right now is former city councilman and founder of the shuttered charter school in Baltimore, Carl Stokes. Carl, thank you for joining us.
Oh, glad to be with you this evening.
What's your reaction to the board's decision?
Well, I'm glad that they finally did that, meaning that they did renew the charter. I know they've given them a laundry list of things to do, and it's unfair in the sense that there are thousands of young people being taught in our traditional public schools who are failing or being failed, actually, by the schools that they attend. And the same sort of accountability is not being leveled on those schools. The charter schools who, for the most part, are doing a good job, are having this renewal happening every couple of years or so, and then being charged with being better than the traditional schools. And the traditional schools should also be under the same accountability.
You mentioned the laundry list. We're going to list it for you, and bear with us because it is a lot. It includes hiring more certified educators, getting a city-approved financial expert, improving special education services, ensuring required classes like social studies, science, and foreign languages are being taught, making sure collective bargaining agreements are followed so that staff members are appropriately qualified for the positions they hold.
The school must also show that data processes have been improved and that instructors are able to use data to improve the learning experience, make sure grants are managed and spent appropriately, provide on-site equal employment opportunity training to ensure a positive work environment for staff. And looking at this list, do you think failing public schools are meeting that? And your FC Morgan was just here last hour at 4 o'clock, Mr. Stokes. She believes this is a bit of hypocrisy on the school's system's part because there are so many schools that are failing, and she believes not meeting these kinds of standards.
Absolutely. When I looked at this list, and just now I looked at it, I said, well, that's a list that should apply to all of our schools. And I know that in the greater majority of our schools, that list is not being adhered to. I know that it is a double standard, so that if more of these schools, the traditional schools, would do these things, the schools would be much better. Education would be much better for thousands of young people in Baltimore City. So yes, this is a double standard, absolutely.
So in your opinion, is the school board focusing on the wrong schools here for improvement?
Well, they should be looking at all of the schools. Yeah. Obviously, the charter schools are a part of their accountable measurements also. But however, they are looking specifically at some of these charter schools while not doing the same job for the traditional schools across the city. So again, being repetitive, it is a double standard.
All right, Carl Stokes, thank you so much for coming in, giving us your perspective, because we know you have gone through it all. We appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting me here this evening.
You're welcome.
And that brings us to our question of the day. Should those responsible for failures inside of city schools be fired or resign? So far, 96% of those who responded say yes. You can go to foxbaltimore.com/vote and tap the Pulse tab to weigh in.
All right, good-looking afternoon. Toyota Shina Harbor Skycam. It's 53, winds out of the southeast at 8 miles an hour, and our humidity at 59%. No wind chill. It's too warm for a wind chill, but hey, we will take what we can get. I mean, February now going into early March, and things looking pretty nice, continuing the same mild trend. You see the snow that's up around Boston and Montreal, and then there's all kinds of mess that's down in the south with flood watch in Nashville back to Memphis, and even that yellow is a tornado watch in effect. A portion of that system is coming our way. We've been kind of bogged down with a few clouds this afternoon. intermixed with the sunshine. That's with a warm front. That's our next weather maker that's going to be moving through. And it could even bring a chance of some of these showers down to our south and west late night tonight into early tomorrow before temperatures really go off to the races by tomorrow afternoon, at least for a day. So again, we increase that rain chance, excuse me, from the south and west overnight tonight. I think it's kind of knocking on the door as we head through the just after sunset hours and after midnight. That's when our rain develops. Notice this kind of trails off, and then there's more energy around Dallas up to Albuquerque in New Mexico with rain and snow. And that may come in as colder air sets up for us on Friday. And there was some talk about some snow and sleet maybe in the mix with some cold rain Friday. It doesn't look like that's going to happen now, but again, I'll get more into that in a second. Right now, the temperature's all in the 50s, even some 40s east, where we're right in the vicinity of that warm front. At 61 now, Frederick. We were at 70 last hour at Cumberland. We're now at 68 out Allegheny County way. And then as you work your way farther west than that, 64 now at Oakland. So that's where the warmth is. And here it comes overnight tonight into early tomorrow morning. There's some of the rain after about 2, 3 o'clock in the morning through sunrise. After about 8 o'clock in the morning, that moves east. Temperatures go well into the 60s to near 70 by tomorrow afternoon. And then heading into early Friday, notice the clouds increasing. Temperatures, they go nowhere. In the 30s, only going to the low to mid 40s by lunchtime on Friday after near 70 tomorrow. And then that secondary batch of rain moves in. So Friday looking like a messy day. And even up in the mountains, potentially, there could be some snow and ice that way. 68 degrees for tomorrow, morning showers and some clearing skies, rain showers for Friday, 44. And then it warms up a little bit as we head into the weekend. And by the way, we are under a coastal flood advisory for Anne Arundel County, and most recently here, it's going to be for Hartford County, 528 high tide, running 2 to 2.5 feet above normal.
Well, Chicago's mayor is out after a rise in violent crime during her tenure, asking experts how continued violence in Baltimore could shape the next mayoral election here.
The defendant was the one person who was living a lie. The defendant is the person on which a storm was descending.
Closing arguments in the Alex Murdaugh trial underway, the latest from the prosecution as the weeks-long court battle comes to a close. Attorney General Merrick Garland responding to allegations his department is politicized. National correspondent Kayla Gaskins has the latest.
So help you God.
Merrick Garland taking the hot seat on Capitol Hill.
You set up a website and a hotline to report parents.
Republican senators pressing the attorney general on internal whistleblower allegations that the FBI investigated upset parents from the heated pandemic-era school board meetings as domestic terrorists.
And you issue a directive to your criminal division and to your counterintelligence or counterterrorism division to start investigating parents who are angry.
Garland defending his leadership.
The memorandum was aimed at violence and threats of violence against a whole host of school personnel.
House Republicans preparing to hold their own hearings on the issue.
It's not a ploy when the Department of Justice treats parents as terrorists.
The DOJ and FBI handing over some documents related to their investigations into parents by Wednesday's subpoena deadline from the House Judiciary Committee. House Republicans reportedly still waiting on the Department of Education.
There is an apparent pattern here that the FBI has been using federal law enforcement resources for political purposes.
Concerns over parents' lack of power in the public education system highlighted in a new independent investigation published this week by Protect the Public's Trust, a government watchdog group where internal Department of Education communications show the agency has a much closer relationship with teachers' unions than parent groups. A spokesperson for the watchdog group saying, quote, "These documents reveal what everyone already knew, that the teachers' unions are driving the Department of Education bus."
I spoke with Senator Hawley briefly after today's hearing, and he said Republicans likely won't get another chance like this to grill Merrick Garland on the weaponization of the DOJ, while Democrats control the Senate. In Washington, I'm Kayla Gaskins.
We're hearing closing arguments in the Alex Murdaugh trial, the latest after jurors visited the crime scene today. And persistent crime causing political change in Chicago, looking into the possibility of a similar reaction at the next election in Baltimore.
In a city in crisis, we're taking a look at how crime in Baltimore could impact the political climate before the next mayoral election.
This year, the city has already seen 43 homicides and 88 people shot. The numbers, though down this year, a continuation of years of violence in the city, which has recorded more than 300 murders 8 years in a row. Now, across the country, continued concerns over violent crime affecting political change. Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot lost her bid for re-election last night. During her term, violent crime rose in the city significantly and became the main focus of the election. The candidate who got the most votes, a Democrat with a tough on crime platform and the support of the Chicago Police Union. Now, the question now, how will this impact Mayor Brandon Scott in the next mayoral election here in Baltimore?
Alexa Ashwell has a closer look at the long-term political impact of violent crime.
Baltimore Mayor Brandon Scott has made it clear he does plan to seek re-election in 2024. But political observers say what happened to Chicago's mayor could be an early indication of what we'll see from voters across the country as crime continues to impact many cities.
I'm eternally grateful to everyone.
A first-time upset in nearly 4 decades. Chicago's Democratic Mayor Lori Lightfoot will not be reelected.
It is a wake-up call for a lot of people, and it should be a wake-up call to Mayor Scott because she lost for many of the reasons people are frustrated in Baltimore.
Political analyst John Dede says those reasons, crime and education, 2 issues the people of Baltimore have pleaded leaders to improve month after month, year after year.
People have to see that the light at the end of the tunnel is the sun and not a train.
This fear and frustration already reflected in the polls here at home. This past election, more than 70% of voters in Baltimore voted to remove former City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby, known for her progressive policies.
Voters want to see that you're resolving and solving some of these problems.
In Baltimore, the latest statistics showing homicides are down 22% compared to this time last year, and non-fatal shootings are also down by more than 28%. Mayor Brandon Scott still falling short on a campaign promise.
When he ran for office, he promised to get under 300 murders, and we're nowhere close to that so far. And I think that he's got to try to show that progress is being made.
Dede says a good move for Scott would be to stay close with newly elected City State's Attorney Ivan Bates, who took office at the beginning of this year and has vowed to be tough on guns, repeat offenders, and enforce all laws in the books.
I would tie myself as much as possible to Ivan Bates, because right now, everyone is following Ivan Bates's lead on crime.
Dede says a big takeaway of this is that voters are not afraid to vote into office first-time politicians, using former President Donald Trump as a prime example. Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News.
Well, Chicago's election is not just sending a message to Baltimore politicians. It could be a sign of political change across the nation. Scott Thuman takes a closer look at what drove voters there.
We will make Chicago the safest city in America.
Running on promises to fight crime in Chicago.
We can build a better, stronger, safer Chicago.
A former school CEO and a county commissioner just ousted nationally known Mayor Lori Lightfoot, blamed in part by opponents for the spike in violent crime, a big factor in voter turnout and the most mail-in ballots ever for a municipal election there. The number of homicides hitting a 25-year high in 2021 with 797, decreasing last year but still more than when Lightfoot took office. It's not just Chicago where crime has doomed candidates labeled too lenient. In San Francisco, the district attorney was recalled. Some want the same for New Orleans mayor over safety concerns. And in their last election, frustrated New Yorkers chose a former police captain to run the city. In Washington, D.C., Capitol Hill getting involved too, with Democrat Joe Manchin joining Republican senators. Congress looks poised to vote and override the D.C. City Council's new criminal code, which critics say is soft on violent crime. Manchin quoted as saying, "I want to put people away. I don't want to let them out." Though President Biden could use his veto pen to side with the D.C. City Council. Yet longtime lawmakers also know safety can't be ignored.
Job number one in public office is keep people safe. And when I was a mayor, that's what I did. When I was a governor, that's what I did. Making sure that our communities are safe, that law enforcement and the broader community has the resources they need.
Republicans especially banking on that issue getting them elected. Former President Trump promising record investment in policing, and potential challenger Ron DeSantis just finished a speaking tour on crime across 3 major cities, including Chicago. In Washington, I'm Scott Thuman.
And that brings us to our national question of the day. Will crime in your area affect the way you vote? To answer, just scan the QR code on your screen right now. A robbery and assault in Glen Burnie. It happened just after 9 a.m. yesterday at a Sunoco on Crane Highway near I-97. According to police, a man in a hoodie and sweatpants began talking with a cashier, then showed a gun. The suspect allegedly said, "I could kill you if I wanted to," and then stole some merchandise. Anybody with information on the robbery should contact Anne Arundel County Police.
Also in Anne Arundel County, an arrest and an assault early this morning. Police say after midnight, they responded to a home on Orchard Overlook, that's in Odenton. Investigators say the victim and his ex-boyfriend got into an argument. The conflict escalated to the point where, according to police, the ex-boyfriend's mother came to the home with a gun, threatening to kill the victim. 30-year-old Erica McBean has been charged.
Baltimore County Fire responding to a burning apartment building in Parkville. Happened around 10 last night. Fire crews rescued multiple residents from balconies on the building. One person was taken to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. The fire was under control by 10:30.
Meantime, investigators are trying to determine the cause of a deadly fire in Dundalk yesterday. The Baltimore division of the ATF is assisting local fire department and police departments in their investigation. Investigators or neighbors tell Fox 45 News they heard explosions during the fire.
I heard boom, like a bomb or something. Like I heard booming, and then the fire it started exploding. So I just heard explosion, 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 a bunch of explosion. So I grabbed my kids and ran down the street.
2 people died. One has been identified as 66-year-old Beth Susan Gibson. Fire crews say one of the victims was found in the home stairwell, while another was in an upstairs bedroom. A third person was able to escape and is currently in the hospital.
A push in Annapolis to get more young Marylanders health insurance coverage. Today, the Senate held a hearing on Senate Bill 601. It seeks to make a pilot program that provides subsidies to reduce the cost of health insurance permanent. The program launched in 2021, and it has reported an 11% increase in health insurance coverage among young adults. That's 46,000 people.
Once they hit the age of 34, then is it expected, or are we going to continue? I think a lot of people, a lot of taxpayers are hesitant saying, okay, we start funding this, making it permanent, then we're just going to continue doing it, and then we're just going to keep paying and paying and paying from now on. What happens at the age of 34?
Well, at the age of 34, you can no longer get these subsidies, but you still get some subsidies under the Affordable Care Act, and people get better jobs by the time they get 34 usually. And the fact of the matter is we know that young people have a tough time making ends meet, getting everything they need, coming right out of college or high school. This has helped dramatically to make kids healthier and all of us better off.
Well, under the bill, the state will allocate $20 million each year.
Leaders in the Maryland General Assembly are supporting change to the 2024 primary date. The state's primary date right now is set by law, currently scheduled for April 23rd. But that date coincides with Passover, which could prevent thousands of residents from voting. Legislation has been submitted to set a new day for the elections.
Governor Wes Moore announcing millions in funding to support affordable housing. $13 million in state funds is going to housing projects in Dundalk, Hanover, and Edgewood. The 3 projects will all have between 68 and 84 units rented out to people with income less than 60% of the median income in the area.
For months, Project Baltimore has been trying to get answers from the people in charge of Maryland Public Schools about a number of topics, including enrollment, funding, and GO students.
But after a dozen emails and several calls, that all went unanswered. We decided to try something different and go straight to the state leadership during Tuesday's state school board meeting.
This body oversees billions of tax dollars. You are commissioned to educate nearly 1 million students, and the media can't get a response to simple questions about how some of that money is spent and how some of those students are educated.
Tonight at 10, more from that meeting, plus an update on whether or not Project Baltimore has finally heard from the State Department of Education.
The defendant is the one person who is living a lie. The defendant is the person on which a storm was descending. And the defendant is a person where his own storm would actually mean consequences for Maggie and Paul, and consequences for those who trusted him.
Closing arguments happened in the Alec Murdaugh trial. The former South Carolina attorney is facing murder charges in the deaths of his wife and son. Prosecutors say Murdaugh killed his wife and son in 2021 to distract from and delay investigators into financial problems that would have exposed him as a fraud. Jurors also toured the Murdaugh's massive estate, which has been the center of the trial. The roughly 1,700-acre property includes the house, swamplands, and dog kennels where the bodies were found. Murdaugh claims that he, his wife Maggie, and younger son Paul were fatally shot when he returned home from a visit to his sick mother. Well, court is still in recess right now until tomorrow morning, when the defense will begin its closing arguments. A scam targeting you through your TV. What an expert says you need to do to stay safe while streaming your favorite shows. After the break, our final champion of courage, saluting agents of change in our communities. Coming up, one man who's making a difference in the lives of young people in heartbreaking situations.
And if you like mild temperatures and dry driving, and who doesn't for an afternoon commute, looks like that's what we've got. Temperatures fall from the 50s back into the 40s, but the clouds will increase tonight, and there could be some rain by tomorrow morning's rush. I'm going to be tracking that hour by hour on the Future Scan. Latest computer model runs coming in. My Weather Authority forecast.